Hello and welcome to this video. In this one I want to talk about the Cubase render in place feature, and the main reason for this video is because I see people are, let's say, a bit hesitant to use this feature, and my goal with this video is to change your mind a little bit about this feature, and let's see if I succeed with this one. So let's go. So here is a project I'm currently working on, and I think it's a good example because we have a lot of instrument tracks here. By the way, I prefer instrument over MIDI tracks. And the first question would be, when and why should I use render in place? And there are many reasons for this. You can see them now on the screen. For me, the most important ones are the overall project runs smoother. Not everything is eaten by the CPU anymore. And another thing would be, let's say the project is finished, the song is done, the arrangement is done, it sounds awesome, you like it, and you leave it on your hard drive, on your cloud or whatever. And let's say you want to go back to this project, or you have to go back because you have some requests from clients or whatever. And maybe you don't have a plugin anymore, or you don't have a sample library anymore. Maybe you have a new computer, a whole new system, and then you are screwed, to be honest. Then good luck with recreating the sounds with missing plugins or sample libraries. I learned this the hard way, to be honest. It's a pain in the ass. And another good reason is, let's say we have some specific elements in the mix where audio files are much more convenient to work with. So let's say for sound design, where you can time stretch, pitch shift, or let's say you want to add more effects. And for this one, you can see the transients, you can see the long tails, you can see little build-ups before an impact, and it's just a much more convenient way to work with audio files this way. Okay, let's have a look at this project here. It's a more trailer hybrid style project, and let's say we want to record this trailer hit here. I use a sample library for this one. It's called Devastator from Keep Forest. And with trailer hybrid style hits, most of them are more complex and some of them are simpler. And let's put this in solo here, and let's just record one of these hits here. There we go. And as you hear, there is a nice little build-up. We have an impact and a long tail, but we only have one MIDI note. We don't see the build-up, we don't see the impact. And of course you can say, yeah, but I can move the MIDI note around a little bit. But to be honest, just rendering out this hit or impact is a much more convenient way. And at first, let me show you where you can find the render settings. It's right here, Edit, Render in Place, and you can see my shortcuts here. Here we have the render with current settings, and here we have the render settings itself. And I highly recommend using shortcuts for these ones. It really speeds up your workflow. And let's go to the settings here. And now we have to talk about a very, very important topic, which is we have two different options for render in place. We have render the selection and render the whole track or the whole channel. And I see people get confused by this all the time. They mix these two up all the time. And the important thing is we have, of course, similar settings for both, but we also have slightly different settings. And let me show you this. So let's say we wanna render out this complete track here, but we also accidentally, or just in case we don't know, we have this event here selected. And then I hit my shortcut for the settings, and then it says right here, render selection. Because with this setting, it would only render out this selection, not the whole track. So when you want to render out a complete track, make sure that nothing in the project is selected. This is very important. So you can do this by just clicking on an empty space here and then select your track, hit your shortcut for your render settings, and then you see right here, render tracks. This is the important thing to know. Okay, let's stick with the render selection at first. So let's select this event here, and I hit my shortcut for the render settings, and we have a lot of options here. I don't want to go through all of these, just the most important ones. I always choose one event here, and here we have the processing options, which are very important. We have the dry setting, which means all of your channel settings will be transferred to the new audio track, but your sample library, in this case the Keep Forest one, will be baked in to the audio track. Here we have the channel settings, which means all of your Cubase EQs, your Cubase channel strip settings, and also your insert settings will be baked into the WAV file. And then we have the complete signal path and the complete signal path and the master effects. And here we have a tail mode. We can activate also a tail mode. We can choose seconds, for example, and here 5 seconds, which means Cubase would automatically add a tail of 5 seconds to this new WAV file. To be honest, most of the time I do this manually. I just make the event longer. When I have a really long tail, or let's say a really long reverb tail, I just make the event a little bit longer, and that's it, to be honest. And I always use 24-bit for my WAV files, and I also always use the project folder itself. And here we have source events. So we can say we keep source events unchanged or mute the source events. And I always want to mute my source events. So let's choose this option here. And then we can hit render. And then we have our new WAV file, and we have the source track here. We have the source event, it's muted. And here we have our new WAV file. Okay, with this new WAV file, we can clearly see the impact, this nice little build up here, and also the long tail. And now we can grab this one and we can put this right onto the grid here. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Let's do it like this. This should be fine. And now we can cut some of the beginning here. And let's have a listen with a click here. And now it's perfectly on the grid, and we can move this around, and it's always perfectly on the grid. Okay, let me quickly show you the render with the channel settings. So let's say we want to render this trailer hit with an EQ as an insert. So let's put in a simple EQ here. Let's choose the fab filter one, and let's say we have an high or low cut. I just make some stuff up here. It doesn't make really sense. And when we choose the dry setting and we render this, the plugin is still there. So you have all the flexibility. You can change some stuff with the fab filter EQ with your WAV file. But let's undo this, and let's say we don't want to keep this plugin. We want to bake this plugin into the WAV file. Then we choose the channel settings, which means all of your insert effects are baked into the WAV file. And now the plugin isn't there anymore, and the fab filter EQ is baked into the WAV file. And the coolest thing, in my opinion, is when you are getting more confident with the whole process, which is the goal for this video, it really speeds up your whole workflow. So let's say we want to render the selection here. Just click it and hit your shortcut for your settings. Check your settings and hit render. And boom, there is your new WAV file. Let's undo this, and let's say you are sure about your render settings. You can skip this process and you can jump straight to the render process itself. So click your event, hit your shortcut, and boom, there is your new WAV file. And you can also do this with all kinds of sounds where you have sample libraries and MIDI notes. And let's say you are not really sure if it's on the grid or not, just render it out as a WAV file and you have a perfect WAV file you can work with. And another thing would be, let's say we have this MIDI note, let's unmute this and let's put this in solo. And this is a really long hit. And let's say we want to play this project from this position here. And when we play this, let's deselect this. So you can hear the sample starts at this position, which is really annoying sometimes, because when you have, let's say you have layered more of these hits, which is almost always the case. Of course, there are other settings you can choose, but a much more convenient way, in my opinion, is just render this stuff out and then the sound is at the right place where it belongs. So let's solo this one and play it at this position. You can hear almost nothing. And you can hear the sound is right there where it should be. Okay, now let's talk about the render track function. And we have this signal track here. And at first, let me show you how this sounds. So let's solo this. Of course, it sounds a little bit weird alone. So to give you a little bit more context, let's play the whole project. And of course, we heard the other hit, which is not in the right place. I apologize for that. And let's say we want to render out this complete signal track here. Not just the single events. So make sure that nothing is selected like this. Just click on an empty space here. Select your track. Then I hit my shortcut for my render settings. We have the same options here, but here we have more. We can say keep source tracks unchanged, mute the source tracks, disable source tracks, or remove the source tracks. And we also have the option hide the source tracks. And I want to disable my source tracks. I show you why in a few minutes. And let's render this. Now Cubase is doing its thing. And now we have a nice WAV file, the complete track. And now maybe you are asking, where is the source track? Is it erased? Is it gone? No, it is just hidden. And whenever something is hidden in the project, the track visibility agent is orange here. And I can say show all tracks. And there is my signal source track. And I can already go into the MIDI file and change some settings around if I want. And this track is now disabled. It's deactivated, which means it's not active and it's not used by the CPU anymore, which is great. And I also have a shortcut for enable or disable tracks, which is this one. Now the track is active again, and you can see my send effect is still there because I choose the dry option for rendering. But now I have my wave track here, and I want to disable my track, and I say hide disabled tracks. And now I have a nice and clean project with only my wave file. And the cool thing about this is let me show you this with this example. Select the track, nothing else is selected, and the try setting, disable source tracks, hide source tracks, render. And as you can see, we have our new wave file, and the source track is automatically disabled and hidden by Cubase, which is awesome. And if we want to see the source track again, we can say show all tracks, and there it is. And now let's imagine I do this with all my tracks after a session, or let's say the song is finished, and then I do this with all my tracks. You can select them all at once and hit your render settings and choose these options, and then you have a nice and clean project with all the wave files. And then it doesn't matter anymore if you don't have the sample library anymore, because you have your wave files. And this is great for me, especially for a backup. But what I do before all of that, I create a new version of the project. Or let's say I save a new version, because then I have a project version of the project with all the instrument and MIDI tracks, and the other version is the project with all the wave files. But you can go back already here in this project with the wave files. So let me show you this again. Let's say you want to change something with this. Let's say something is wrong. There is a wrong note here. So let's say show all tracks, and then let's say this one is wrong. Put this up here. Let's deactivate this track. Let's activate the source track again. Then we hit our render options, the same options here. Render. And boom, there is your new wave track. Okay, and let's say we want to render all these events or tracks into one audio file. You can do it also with complete tracks or with just single events. And let's say we use these events here. Then we hit our settings. And here we have this option mix down to one audio file. But this doesn't work with the try setting. You have to choose the channel settings or one of the other two here. And then we have this option here, mix down to one audio file. So we select this. And I recommend give the new audio file a proper name, so you can recognize it in your sample pool. And then we hit render. And Cubase is doing its thing. And here we have our new render file. And again, let me show you this with the render track feature. So let's say we want to render these tracks here and not just the single events. So as we now know, make sure that nothing is selected here. So click on an empty space, select your tracks, hit your settings. And again, this doesn't work with the try setting. So we have to choose the channel settings here, and then we can mix down to one audio file. And let's say this is layer 2, whatever. So this is great, for example, for layering drum sounds, or let's say some specific sound design stuff where you want to merge multiple tracks into one. And then we hit render, and Cubase is again doing its thing. It takes a little bit longer, of course. And here we have our new track. It's an audio track with a nice audio file. And the source tracks again are not erased. These are hidden here. And here we have our source tracks. And if we want to go back and change something, we can do this here. And here we have our new wave file. And we can also say hide the disabled tracks. And now we have a nice and clean project with the audio file. Okay, and that's it for this video. I hope you learned something and I hope it was helpful. If so, please subscribe to my channel, give the video a thumbs up, and see you on the next one. Bye!